This place has really nice ambience.
Yep.
Oh, I took like 3 of those before bed last night.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
Welcome to the edge of nowhere. They're playing games at the edges of what we know. Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this 87th episode of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Carr, here with my co-host and the Treebeard to my Tom Bombadil, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz. How you doing, Moz? We haven't done this in a while.
Aren't we supposed to 86, 87? That was my understanding.
86, 87. You know what 86 means?
It means to kick out.
It means put them 8 miles out and 6 feet deep.
Dang, that's
where you put them.
That's where people put our collective works as well.
Now it just means don't come back.
Yeah.
They used to make sure you didn't.
Yeah.
But let's climb some trees, man.
Yeah, let's do it. You're going to want to hit the farmer's market before this one to show those plants who's boss, because we will be exploring some deep existential and ontological implications of allowing the plant kingdom to think, feel, or even consider us a food source, or consider them intellectually equal or beyond. This is kind of like, it creates a little anxiety for many, because it's a very strange. As I looked into this a little bit, I was shocked how few people actually could, I mean, plants are different. We see a lot of animal monsters. This was a different research moment for me than I expected. I'll just say that.
Interesting.
Yeah, as we're about to find out.
It's a great opening. I missed you, Moz. Let's go.
Yeah, I was opposed to a deep dive on plants and algae and moss because, but gradually the idea grew on me. Boom, boom,
boom.
There you go. But it's basically the theme is like they came about the tree monsters as kind of unconquered nature personified. It became a symbol of the wildlands. And if you think about this, if Isaac Newton had never been attacked by an apple tree, we would never have classic physics.
Yeah.
So I started along those lines.
Go. Maybe it did it because it knew.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the guy.
Yeah.
Hit him.
Now.
Drop it. Now.
It's those Oz trees. Yeah.
Oh my God. I got it.
I know.
Gravity.
It was plant. It was a creature teacher in plant form.
Yeah.
No.
And what tree is the tree of knowledge in the Bible? The apple.
The apple. Yeah.
There you go.
That's right.
Hits him right in the head with the knowledge, man.
Yeah. You connected it to the Bible already.
I'm tangenting already, too.
Nice.
Go ahead, Moz.
Well, the other interesting point to get us started here is there is a pygmy tribe I found, in the Aturi forest. They can sense when the forest is in a foul mood, so they correct this imbalance by singing to it. Oh. So talking about the dark forest in this way, if it's off kilter, if you honor this idea, you can restore balance by singing. So we tonight should probably end this episode by restoring balance and sing Ren and Stimpy, the Gelted Yakman song, or the Log, something like that.
I would remember Log better.
Yeah, me too. I don't know the other one, honest with you. But yeah, I also found a really cool inspirational quote to get us going for this Ent and Arbor Day and plant lore. In a study from T.S. Miller, I found a great mood quote, which he covers this Arthur G. Strangland quote. So it is a quote within a quote.
Nice.
From The Lake of Life,
the
1932.
Way only Moz can do.
I know. I just messed this up, actually. But in the very ether about them, both men sensed in subconscious depths the inimical alignment against them of plants and trees, of their cytoplasmic consciousness, radiating an alien enmity for all things flesh and blood. It's very Lovecraftian, I thought. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Plants so alien and malevolent, and with a vastly different cognition that they are, for all intents and purposes, because of the yawning evolutionary gap that they represent, wholly alien So we don't really have this connection that we have to animals and animal monsters, as I found.
Yeah. Different branch on the tree, aren't we?
Literally.
Literally.
But the malevolent man-eating plants, if they're a thing, it becomes next level disturbing for everyone. So today, but hold that thought, or I guess put it in the crisper today. Probably be the better way to do that.
Make sure you wash it first.
Yeah. And let's start with the largest and the oldest ones. I thought this would be cool. General Sherman is the largest tree in the world in California. Some branches are bigger than entire other redwoods themselves. And the oldest in the world, we're not far from here. Prometheus was chopped down in Nevada not too long ago in Wheeler Park. It was nearly 5,000, not that Wheeler Park. Yeah.
I was going to say that Wheeler
This
Park's
is
down the
Nevada.
street.
Yeah, Nevada's Wheeler Park. It was nearly 5,000 years old when it succumbed to the chainsaw,
Good Lord.
leaving over 1,700 mourning children and an estimated 10,000 orphaned acorned grandchildren.
We don't study it enough to know what effect that has on its immediate ecosystem. A 5,000-year-old tree was playing a role in that forest.
Yeah. Second oldest, Methuselah, aptly named, nearly as old and is somewhere in the White Mountains, Arizona. From the picture, it looks close to the New Mexico border. They don't want podcasters to know exactly where this one is because
I'm going to find it.
because they know we try to find it and interview it for like a tree monster episode. So that's why they don't tell people. That's my guess anyway.
I'm great with maps.
But trees can get impossibly large and some are impossibly old. But what of the killer variety? That's what we're going to be exploring tonight.
Yeah, like all I really know is those walking trees that actually move through the forest. Do you know, is that in here? Or are we just beyond that?
Well, I mean, you're talking about a real plant that moves.
Real life, like walking trees.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, do tell. I mean, what do you know?
I don't know that much.
Yeah.
I'll come up with something for the side trail or something.
Let's do it. But we all know the pitcher plant and the Venus flytrap. These plants have a hankering for meat, and so it's carnivorous flora. But finding full anthropophageous cannibal plants was a little harder. But they are in the folklore if you look deep enough. Under the broccoli or what might have been once lettuce, you got to start there.
I've always thought broccoli looks like it should get up and start walking around.
Yeah, you remember Dirk Gently's refrigerator? It's like that.
Oh, yeah.
But a rash of plant hoaxes and related literature do seem to coincide with the discovery of carnivorous plants in the wild. Definitely got people thinking and, put this seed in their minds, so to speak. But as usual, I hearken back to find tree spirits are everywhere, yet nowhere. We find shamans ingesting plants for ritual and magical purposes, but we don't find them in our cave art. No depictions of spear-chucking warriors surrounded and staving off giant tree monsters, at least not in the fossil record or the cave art.
That's an interesting point, man.
Yeah, you see a lot of things that come up, and a plant grabbing a dude is not in a cave anywhere that I could find. But yet there is some mention of the totemization of plants, but very little details. When a shaman takes the form of a hawk, the stories come down to us. But a hydrangea or rhododendron sorcery werebeasts, I was nearly stumped. Yeah, that pretty much, that's as good as it's going to get for the dumb jokes.
Yeah. Brings to mind a theory of Greg's. We might have to get him back in here for that at some point soon.
I know, we just lost him, which is
He's just here, man.
I know.
He's just here.
I know. But again, plants are at the heart of shamanism. In his classic, The Way of the Shaman, Michael Harner, he mentions the Conibo, Conibo shaman of the Upper Amazon, as directly getting their teachings from plants. Of course, countless other tribes share similar tales, like the teacher, like the Mother Ayahuasca, I guess, for example. But when you ask a shaman of any jungle, where did the knowledge of this medicine come from? The answer comes back a lot of times the plants told us. And I definitely remember that from Graham Hancock's Supernatural as well.
Jeremy Narby, too.
And Jeremy Narby's work, yeah. However, on the creature-teacher front, which is part of my focus here on MLT, we find plants heavily on the teacher side, but a little light on the creature side. But let's look, because failure's not an option here at MLT. Never. But I did look back again through shamanic texts and even I Sumerianed a bit because I like to do that, looking for the oldest tree creature origins. But don't confuse Dawn of the Tree Monster with Morning Woods, because that's just actually totally different.
Yikes.
Yeah. Sorry. But there is a tantalizing...
Morning with a U, right?
Yeah, a yew tree.
With a yew
tree. Yeah. But there's a tantalizing lead. Listen to this. This legend comes from Sumer, and it's something called the Sumunda Grass. And it's not what you think, so don't get too excited.
So I can't smoke it.
No. I mean, I don't know. This is an old grass. But the potter gave her holy drinking vessels. The shepherd brought her his sheep. He asked her. He brought her all kinds of luxuriant plants, as it were, for the harvest. Her voice reached heaven. Her voice reached earth. Her resounding cry covered the horizon like a garment, was spread over it like a cloth. She hurled fierce winds at the head of the Sumunda Grass, saying, Sumunda Grass, your name here, kind of thing. Yeah. You shall be a plant. You shall be a hateful plant, your name here. This is from cuneiform, and I found this in Sumer and Babylon myths, and I'll put that in the show notes. But approximately 23 lines are missing. It's very disjointed. The cuneiform is very damaged. But it sounds like, to me, basically this is a curse of a witch's curse turning someone into hateful grass, basically, which I know goes against your sensibilities, probably.
I almost felt like it's cursing the land and turning the whatever grows there evil.
Well, that could be one interpretation.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't find that much more on it, but it sounded like you will be hateful grass, like you were turning that person that you are cursing.
Sounds like they're cursing the actual ground to me, or you know what I mean?
The land.
Anything, the land itself.
The land
cursing
itself.
The land.
Yeah, but your name here.
So that if you live there, the plants are going to be a menace.
You might have a better translation. So well done, sir. So good job. You got your thinking camp.
That's why you need an English major.
There you go. I know I can't do those things, but it does sound like some kind of magical incantation for sure. But instances of turning people into plants does appear sprinkled throughout classical mythology. Perhaps the most famous example is when Apollo is randy for Daphne. If you remember that one, the river god Peneus turns her into a laurel to escape her fate. This is a common enough trope. What's not a common trope is then finding out how the next day the same laurel tree wanders through the countryside devouring livestock. Daphne just kind of hangs out there, and she's just a laurel tree, and people pass laurels around in her honor.
Man.
But there are a laurel and hearty handshake.
Har.
But there are some nastier plants, thorn, poison, and bramble-wise. But tonight we're looking for something much darker, much more monstrous. That's the mission.
Yeah,
you know?
It's monstrous.
There are all these plant-based fairies and elementals, of course, as we shall see, getting back to that land you talked about.
So the monsters that live in the trees, like quite literally, you got your...
But the blending
fairies.
Is we're going to see.
Those damn fairies.
There's a lot that blend in, and we're going to get to that. You're jumping ahead again.
Nothing but trouble, those fairies.
You're nothing but trouble because you jump ahead, you know, but no, it's good. You do it in a good way.
I just foreshadow.
Yeah.
Sounds better that way.
Yeah, he's foreshadowing, exactly. But many monsters seem intertwined to the tree spirit homes in which they lived. And I was shocked how hard it was to kind of tease these out sometimes. But why is there such a gap at the botanical beastie side of things? Well, the word beast already implies, animal. So we're already off to a hard start here. Not only is there a...
Well, that's a very human connotation kind of thing, though.
Right.
Like, what beast can definitely... I think we've proven in this podcast that beast goes beyond just the animalistic.
Yeah.
Or mammalian side of things. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, your last episode was the monstrous microcosm.
Yes.
So if microbes can be beasts, why not trees and plants?
And we're going to get into that bias tonight. So you're foreshadowing again.
Anthropomorphizing things, man.
Yes, exactly.
There's a word for you.
Well, it's in the script, the word anthropomorphizing.
Oh, I'm doing it again. Go ahead, boss.
Yeah. I'm just going to stare at you now until you stop. But not only is there precious little in the Wayback Machine on plants, but similarly, you never hear stories today, something like, hey, on our last camping trip, a shrub beast devoured Bobby. It doesn't happen. They're not a lot of... There is a half-man, half-cabbage creature mentioned in Linda Godfrey's work. I know what I saw, but she's talking about something, a deformed head. It's not a plant creature. It's almost unheard of. Like, there's no subreddit groups about salads attacking people or whatever.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Tomato. But we don't get terrorized by celery or other produce, except in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. But you can have a bad trip. But it's not kind of like when we talked about the Banjakri, where you pass the trial and the Yeti monster teaches you, you fail a test, this cave bear bride devours you. any plant lore equivalents like that creature, that kind of creature teacher to that level, it remains elusive. Anyone has anything that I missed? monsterloretour@gmail.com. Always interested to hear, what I got wrong and where these stories are beyond fiction and literature, and we will get to that. But what does this tell us? Are plants too different, too far back in our archaic development to even resurface as such an archetype? Kind of be exploring that tonight. This isn't the only gap. We have a rock or a mineral-based monster problem as well, except the Galaxy Quest thing, of course. But my initial thoughts, since neuroscientists describe our noggins as lizard, squirrel, monkey brain, that's kind of how they look at the development. That is as far back. That's what they call it. I mean, we have the lizard brain
great.
and then the squirrel. It's like the different eras and epochs of our brainular development.
I'm picturing I had a Homer moment where I pictured the actual creature.
Yeah, and what that would be, a lizard, squirrel, monkey creature.
I saw a monkey head and a squirrel body with lizard legs and tail.
But you can immediately get a picture of that. We don't go as far back. The half and half seem to end before plants. So that's just too far. The eukaryotic, prokaryotic split or whatever that happened back then.
Plants predate us, predate animals and all that by a long shot.
It's just, so far back. Perhaps we can't access things that far back in our developmental biology. Maybe. Maybe when plant intelligence does surface in our psyches, it's unrecognizable, I guess.
Yeah, and plants might be the non-eukaryotic,
right,
as opposed to everything else is eukaryotic in original nature. But I'm going to get more into that in the mycelium episodes coming up.
Eukaryotic, but you don't carry a tune. But peer review land does address this gap as well with respect to animal studies and all those damnable mammal-centric oppressors. So we're getting to.
There you go.
I'm kidding, sort of. But T.S. Miller's study, The Revenge of the Vegetable in the Age of Animal Studies, this is the quote: "The lack of attention paid to plant and animal studies reveals some of the blind spots of this critical formation, just as surely as animal studies has effectively challenged the speciesism inherent in other critical projects." ... He advocates, quote, "the implications of taking the word species in animal studies a little more literally, as the word so often seems to mean mammal species or animal species. The monster plant may point to a deep unease about the boundary between taxonomic kingdoms that even recent work done in animal studies can have some difficulty navigating." Again, that's T.S. Miller's Lives of the Monster Plants, The Revenge of the Vegetable in the Age of the Animal, and will be in the show notes.
It's a great title.
Yeah, but he's saying the same thing we just did. It's too alien. We can't mind meld with this stuff, And this does put plants betwixt and between, though, a prestigious position where certain monsters do tend to emerge. The trickster is betwixt and between. The monster seems to be related to the trickster. These are the theories I'm kind of playing with right now, and others have, as I'm now doing my research and finding. But this study suggests there are even gaps in animal studies as a result of the fear of blending categories. There's another reason as to their absence. Generally, plants are perceived more as a friend than a foe. Here's the Encyclopedia of Fantasy. Quote, "Since humanity's primate ancestors were arboreal, trees are in a sense our original homes, which might explain their power over the human imagination. To be sure, entire forests are often depicted as evil or dangerous, but images of individual trees are generally positive."
That's been my experience as well. I actually had the thought of doing a tree-based Monster Lore Tour episode.
Isn't that what we're doing?
Like a year, maybe longer ago. I had the idea came into my brain. I did some very quick.
I didn't know this
Research. I just did a real quick.
You just want to take over now? Is that what
real
you're saying?
Quick internet
I
search.
just got out of the damn freeze frame, and now you're taking my episode.
Well, no, you had the tenacity to see it through. I found half a dozen different things about trees, but it was all like you just said. It was all very positive. They were like they had a folklore around them, and they had these mythical type powers, but it was always a positive thing. Like the tree was always going to help, not hurt you.
Well, make no mistake, I did find ones that will hurt you. Thankfully,
nice.
I could sleep easier now.
Yeah, I knew you would. If anybody was gonna, it's the Moz.
But you're not wrong. It is a different context and a different.
Yeah, we put them on a pedestal. You know what I mean? They're very.
They'll die if you do that.
Well, we see them as power more than evil. You know what I mean?
Yep. But I did find some plant monster myths out there, and I think that's where I guess we'll move next. There's also the sub-theme of turning into a plant that's fairly prominent as well. We mentioned Stephen King's character in Creepshow, like more when he's poking the meteorite with the stick.
It itches.
And we learned what? Never poke a meteorite with a stick.
And especially never touch the ooze coming out of a fresh fallen meteorite.
You learn anything from the Monster Lore Tour.
Never touch ooze from space.
I mean, Stephen King really, we're just reiterating it. I want to quote, we don't want to steal his thunder.
We're just repeating the PSA for everybody.
Yeah. And back to T.S. Miller's study.
Well, I mean, we got Poltergeist, too. Did you get Poltergeist in there?
The Poltergeist trees were very spooky.
That's the scariest tree ever.
Yeah.
Pulling them
Outside,
right out the window. And stuff.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's on my list.
I mean, it's a movie.
I'll just add it and not tell you. How about that? Even if I didn't say it. But from that same study, T.S. Miller, he has this charge. He has this Chad Arment quote: "Deliberately hoaxing of botanical wonders, or more often horrors, doesn't seem to have caught on until the 1870s, when stories of man-eating trees began to appear. And this collection also provides some corroborating evidence for a causal relationship between the scientific work discussed in insectivorous plants and the tremendous flowering of monstrous plant stories in the following 2 decades, including 8 different newspaper hoaxes dated between 1885 and 1896.
Oh, that's so people were sending in fake stories too.
But this hoaxing it happened kind of right after we found the pitcher plant. Right at when botanists and explorers found the pitcher plant, found the Venus flytrap, that became a thing we could actually wrap our heads around.
Then all of a sudden, Little Shop of Horrors.
Right.
Oh, I got all the movie references.
Yeah,
there's a lot of movies
I won't have
with
to do
evil
it.
Plants.
Yeah, I have a list.
I didn't realize how many evil plants there were in movies.
We'll just let you do the list. Will that make you feel better?
I'm working my way through as we go.
I'm working my way.
Back to you, Moz.
Here's one of the hoaxes, the Bowser tree hoax. But there was a tree that was supposed to exude highly toxic fumes, and it would kill you if you got anywhere near it. Another one was started by a man named M.P. Forsch, who was a real person and apparently traveled to Java. He told the story of a Javanese upas, U-P-A-S, a tree so lethal, lay waste to anyone who got a whiff of this thing. But that was widely understood to be a hoax as well. It's also a devil snare in Africa, described as a vampire vine. Yeah, this is the hoax era, just to reiterate. But it was in Africa, and it was described as a vampire vine that would entangle and drain the victim's blood. So it's tangled up into your blue.
It sounds so plausible, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how they attack. And that's what they do. But the big one is in Plantville is the man-eating tree of Madagascar. Just this giant tree with all those almost willow tree-like tentacle branches. Each branch will attack like a snake. It's kind of wonderful image, what you were talking about. It's a general image of how a tree attacks, poltergeist. But literature of plant creatures also follows suit from these botany and naturalist discoveries, of course, what I mentioned already. Short stories arrived from Phil Robinson at the same time and Lucy H. Hoover. Even Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a short story about a giant Venus flytrap in his story Americas. Yeah. John Wyndham then wrote Day of the Triffids, complete with some communistic themes. But these plants break into the movies as well. It was a good movie built off of that. I did not read the book. Maybe I did, actually, as a kid. I might have read this book. A long time ago. But the movie's great. If you haven't gotten a chance. We've made some Triffid jokes here in MLT already. Then, of course, you have The Thing from Another World, based on John W. Campbell Jr.'s short story. Both things were based on that same thing, but there is an original, and the original is The Carrot, played by James Arness, which is a plant thing. But Carpenter's version is closer to Campbell's original short story, I found out, and that was entitled Who Goes There? We've had a lot of battles about these things, if you haven't listened to us. But in the original, it's not a carrot. It's more of a blob that incorporates the memories of those ingested, closer to the Carpenter one. But some other TV shows, by the way, that honorable mention, X-Files. We mentioned Field Trip, where they fall asleep and they're being absorbed by these plants. And it's this whole, they're not asleep, but they're asleep. And if they wake up, but they're still dreaming, and the plant wants you to sleep so it can ingest you. The Mud Monster, HOA Mud Monster one was kind of it was more mud, but it was also green and planty.
Yeah, that's more plant than animal, definitely.
Yeah. And the X-Files with the Spanish conquistadors, where there's these little invisible guys that blend in with the trees. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Again, red eyes, and they kind of morphed. And again, this follows the lore that it's really difficult to tease the fairy out from the tree. And I think that X-File actually captures what I came across a lot in the folklore.
And is the fairy part of the tree?
Correct. And we're going to discuss that.
I never really considered them as being a total symbiotic thing like that.
Yep. And as you mentioned, we got Little Shop of Horrors, we got Groot, we got the Elante, there's an actual
Groot.
plant.
Groot's awesome, man.
Yeah, but Godzilla franchise has two. It has the Smog Monster, which is kind of that bacterial
Gross.
algae-based thing. And the Elante is actually a plant kaiju, the first one that made it. And remember Morticia? She had a pet plant Kierkegaard. She fed it meatballs. It liked meatballs.
She fed the plant meat all the time.
Yeah. The tree ants from D&D, and of course, as you mentioned, tree bear.
Of course.
The rest of the Ents.
Thank you, Mr. Tolkien.
And there's a tree that shoots spores that makes you happy in that David Eddings series, which I could never find this, but I do remember that. Birchweb series had tree monsters. The Whomping Willow, of course, from Hogwarts. The Horns, Huorns, another ant-like creature from Lord of the Rings. But before we leave the magically and the whimsical little section here of the fictional, I have to end with some sage-like advice from the Lorax. Here's Dr. Seuss. I am the Lorax, I speak for the trees, I speak for the trees have no tongues, and I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs. Now that's Dr. Seuss, but I finished it for him. ... What's that thing that you've made out of my triffid tuft? Is it the thing with Kurt Russell or the one with Arness? That last was a carrot, the first was a mess. But if you spy an Arctic dog at the start of the feature, keep it off of your base or be subsumed by the creature. There you go.
Any remake with Kurt Russell is better than the original.
Oh my God. This whole podcast was built on a lie. It was
This is why we had to take a break, Moz. Right here. This is why we.
I had a timeout. You gave me a 6-week timeout. That's what.
This is why I left you in the freeze frame, Moz.
and they kept playing that one Jay Giles band song the whole time.
Oh no.
Yeah. But the Lorax speak for the trees, and I speak for the carpenters who make stuff out of them.
Oh,
there
nice.
you go. But I did find.
I speak for the band more than the other ones.
Up on Cripple Creek. But I did find some shapeshifters.
That wasn't the Carpenters. Come on.
Oh, I went with the band. Way ahead of you there, or behind you. Meow. Running rings around you logically.
Where'd he go?
But I did find some shapeshifters that could become plants. This is not unheard of. It's actually quite common. Everything seems to have the ability to shift into plants if it can shapeshift. They generally don't, though, but they seem to always mention they can. Here's a Hawaiian story from Hawaiian folklore. Pele, the famous volcano goddess. Well, one of her many consorts back in the day, Kamapua, was a demigod and consummate shapeshifter who, according to the author John Kachuba, had the ability to appear as a pig, a plant, or a fish. And that's in his shapeshifter's
That's interesting.
book. Well, again, I found that a lot. Kamapua is actually part of a class of being known as Kapua, K-U-P-U-A, who lands somewhere between the aforementioned demigod and a trickster-like character. And these shapeshifters, according to Teresa Bain's bestiary, can become a bit of rope or eggs or plants, not eggplants, just eggs or plants. There's an or. But rope, eggs, or plants are the three that they could become.
Rope, eggs, or plants.
That's an odd collection.
That's
an odd collection.
I can see rope and plant. You make rope from a lot of plants kind of thing.
They threw minerals in there, too.
The egg's like an ovum. Like that's,
what are you going to do with that?
It's weird.
I mean, I think you're just trying to hide and maybe just being the fly on the wall.
Camouflage, you know.
Yeah.
You hide in the bird's nest in the tree.
Yep. But there are other examples sprinkled throughout the folklore. The Japanese seem to also have this belief in shapeshifters as plants. We see this Japanese mindset right from the very definition of kamui, which is the Ainu word for supernatural being. Within that definition, we find kind of the were plant not far behind. This from the Handbook of Japanese Mythology, which will also be in the show notes. The kamui could assume any shape, and when they reciprocated the offerings of human beings, they would dress in animal or tree or vegetation clothing. A fish or a whale, a tree or an animal were the outer garments of the kamui, who provided these things to the Ainu when the deity returned to the kamui homeland.
So they could do water creature, land creature, or plant.
Yep.
That's like the whole range.
Exactly. That from Japanese mythology, be in the show notes. But the most intriguing plant-only shapeshifter I found in Neil Whitehead's Dark Shaman. I might yet do an episode on the Kanaima, and that's where this comes from. But he mentions a leaf shapeshifter, and this is in northern South America, in Venezuela or northern Brazil kind of area. And it just, all it says is it's a shapeshifter like a leaf that blows oddly in the wind. It's a knot leaf.
A knot leaf.
But
that's awesome.
But it's an intriguing entry. It like captured
it just turns into a wisp and blows on the wind.
Yeah, but
it
scares them.
There's the will-o'-the-wisp.
Yeah.
People are scared by the will-o'-the-wisp.
Well, there's definitely a connection always ties in. All this phenomenon tends to often tie in with orbs, whether we're talking about skin
walkers
or fairies or whatever. It seems to be that's it. If there's a monster in the area, it can become an orb as well. Often.
Wow, yeah.
But Nanabotso, remember we talked about the proto-shaman of the Ojibwa and the Algonquin. He has some shamanic shape-shifting related antics where he can transform. And we talked about this in one episode. He transformed into a tree stump or a tree trunk. We'll talk more about that in shaman theories.
Okay.
But there are a number of oracular trees dying the global mythos. People would seek out these trees of knowledge for divination purposes. But none seem particularly monstrous. They didn't get offended and eat the truth seeker, at least in the tales that I found. The worst ones seem to come from Oz, where they'll throw apples at you. But wise old trees is the common thing in fantasy or mythology. I even came across one randomly when reading Don Miguel Ruiz's Beyond Fear, where he describes the Tule tree, Tule, in Oaxaca, Mexico. Giant old tree that he compares to a guru or wise teacher among trees. He also refers to it as the keeper of the silent knowledge. These more oracular trees even show up in video games. Remember, Zelda had one of those in it as well. But Japan wins in the category of creepy varieties of trees. This one is, I think, Jeremy's first reading.
Oh.
And
I forgot I did that around here.
I'm going to try to get through this, but this is going to be from hayakamuntakatari.com, as translated from Mizuki Shingiru's Mujayara. Sorry, I butchered that.
All right. This tree is found in mountain valleys. The fruit of the tree looks like a human head. It doesn't say a word, but it is constantly laughing. It is said that if the fruit laughs too heartily, it falls from the tree. ... They are found in the south, and the fruit of the tree is called the jinmenshi, or human-faced child. They ripen in the fall, and if you eat the fruit, they have a sweet/sour taste. It is said that the jinmenju seed also has a human face, eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. It is possible that the trees were all eaten, and it is why we don't see them today. In the past, however, it was said that people planted great orchards of the laughing jinmenju. That must have been a beautiful sight. The legend of the jinmenju comes from China, and was passed on to Japan, where it was considered to be a yokai due to its peculiar nature. There are also stories of trees bearing human-faced fruit from India and Persia, usually with the faces of beautiful girls. Even now, when you walk through the forest, you can see trees whose roots bear a resemblance to human and yokai faces.
And that from Jimenju, the human-faced tree.
I've seen a little bit of that. Pictures of fruit with looks totally human face, but I didn't realize it was like that, spread out like there were that many instances of it around.
There's a lot of instances of knots and things with pareidolia. A lot of these things seem to be, if it looks like a person, because that's what our minds do.
Sure.
We find patterns.
I've seen some of these fruits, though, and it is undeniable. Like, that is a person's face.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just seeing... Like, yeah. I've just seen faces in things.
Right.
And I've seen faces in things.
Right. And then the myth evolves around that thing.
Right.
Because it's weird, it's creepy. And the Japanese are going to win. We should give them a pre-Mad Cujos, because they seem to have the most monstrous trees.
Mad Cujos.
But then we find the vegetable lamb of Tartary, Per wiki, this is an 11th century myth from Asia wherein a tree grows sheep as its fruit, but the sheep
Whoa.
are tethered to the tree with an umbilical cord type tube. It's clever. The tree has its own leash, this umbilical cord, so the lambs can graze all day, and it's pulled back into the tree and safety the branches at night, keep away from predators.
What the what?
But if a mountain lion comes along, this is just going to be a vending machine. It's going to be like sheepvana.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the tree ate the lion. The
Well,
sheep
yeah,
just grabbed the lion and pulled it
that
into
would've
the
been-
tree.
Let's
never
say
seen
that.
it again.
Let's go with that. That's what happens.
That
That's
sounds
a
like-
better myth.
That sounds like an Australian horror movie.
Total better
waiting
myth.
to be made right
Yeah,
there.
We're going to make that
Maybe
one.
New
We'll get
Zealand?
Greg. Greg is our camera guy. We'll make that video.
That's a Reese Darby horror movie right there.
There you go.
I should go pitch that.
I also found the Naraphon, Nariphon, from Listverse. This is, if you're ever familiar, they do these great little ton of top 10 lists. It's well researched usually. This is from Thailand. Apparently has this tree deep in the Himvanti forest that bears the fruit that are actually miniature women. And these little women protect female travelers. But conversely, they're dangerous to be approached by men, especially if they do what? Do you have any guess?
Pee on it.
If we try to sleep with these little pieces of fruit, they get really, bad idea
I thought it was because we
gins.
like to pee on stuff in the woods.
Instead of bad idea jeans, I have bad idea gins now. I think we're going to go with
Nice,
that. We're going
nice.
to run with that. But several bad and inappropriate jokes have been skipped. You're welcome. So
Thank you.
I did have several, and I decided on none of them. But also from Listverse article, I found the tree of Zacchum, Zaqqum. Quote, the tree of Zacchum is mentioned multiple times in the Quran and is said to exist only in hell. Contains an extremely bitter fruit that is fed to those in hell who beg for something to eat. This demonic tree is said to gain its sustenance from the flames of hellfire itself. Passages in the Quran explain that as the denizens of hell are starved mad with hunger, they will have no choice but to eat the foul-smelling fruit from the tree of Zacchum. But it gets worse. After the damned eat the fruit, which causes their faces to fall off, they are given a horrible kind of concoction of boiling liquid to drink. This causes their bodies to disintegrate into a melted heap of flesh and bone. Then they go straight back into the hellfire and repeat the process. It's,
Yikes.
lather, rinse, repeat, basically. That again from Listverse.
Wow.
Yeah.
You still know how to shake me, Moz. No one else knows how to shake me.
But I do have a note here.
That's horrifying. I'm going to stay up thinking about that today.
I have a note here, no mentioning Nicolas Cage, John Travolta face off. So we're moving on.
I was thinking more like when they opened the Ark.
Yeah.
You know, remember when they opened the Ark in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh yeah, there you go.
All the face melting going on.
Yep. That's you gotta watch. You gotta watch that, especially if you're a Nazi trying to open up the.
Oh yeah.
This from naja.edu. This comes from our peer-reviewed land a little bit. Some of the spookage. This is the quote. All over the world, people used to harness haunted trees to treat physical and mental illnesses. Superstition states that a person can transfer disease to such trees. Likewise, whoever wears something hung on an inhabited tree gains its spirit's protection. In Palestine, people traditionally tie rags to sacred trees, leaving it there for some time to absorb the holiness of the tree and the blessing of the spirit of the saint who inhabits it. Later, the rags are then taken to the house so that the blessing rag is taken, must be replaced with another rag of the saint, so it may spread over it and protect it from the danger of evil spirits, the evil eye, diseases, and epidemics. The most famous example of this is Shajarat al-Sahada, the tree of happiness, between Jenin and Almun. Similarly, in Wadi al-Radam, east of the village of Akraba, there are 11 carob trees haunted by jinn, and there is a small rocky pond called Tasat al-Rajifa, or Shiver Bowl. Many residents of Akraba and the neighboring villages used to come to take water from the pond, believing it could cure cases of fear and panic because it belongs to the jinn who inhabit the site. Such powerful stone trees or ponds could be curative but also dangerous. People passing by the haunted tree of Zaben Kafir Tooth would pile stones around the tree to ward off evil and prevent the diseases it could cause.
They're like some kind of filter for us.
Exactly.
They filter us somehow.
But again, even the bad ones, a lot of them are still helpful depending on how you approach.
When you said you hang something in an inhabited tree, does that mean it like physically?
By spirits.
By spirits.
Yeah. By some kind of a saint in some cases.
So not just
or
birds
something, or
and such.
jinn. We saw jinn-haunted trees. Very common theme. Whatever the monster of the area, it's inhabiting the trees. We found that with the Philippines, which we'll get to.
Gotta find some inhabited trees around here and hang some of my jewelry in them.
But that was from naja.edu, N-A-J-A-H. Next up comes the Lawed Vine, L-A-W-E-D. This from M.C. Cole's Philippine Folk Tales. I found this tree linked to people, so if they were away and a certain vine was healthy, the traveler, your loved one, was fine on their journey. But if it died, the plant died, that meant you weren't, your loved one wasn't coming back. And that folklore comes from both Egypt and India. This is not too dissimilar from...
That's a lot of pressure to keep that plant alive.
Well, do you remember? Well, it's supposed to just stay alive if they're okay, but you're right. If you just forget the water, you're going to feel like shit. It's true. But remember Aragorn in Minas Tirith,
with the last leaf falling off the tree and all that.
Yeah, and he's actually called, Aragorn means Lord of the Tree. That's why he has this kind of mix. Yeah, he can truly, he is the king, but it's almost like he's ontically entwined, like we talked about with that Mertz study with the were-crocodiles.
As goes the land, goes the people on it.
Right.
In those stories.
Right.
Because the elves had the same thing. They had the golden leaf tree.
Yes.
And when the leaves were falling off, it meant they were in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And that we find this theme all over the place. Fairies are obviously sometimes very tree or plant-like. They have close affinity to the elves in the forest, just as you said the next line that I was about to read ahead of time.
You're welcome.
Kidding.
I'm just trying to save you time.
No, I know. I got to skip it. But from Clellan's homeworld at his Hidden Experience podcast platform over on Podbean, anyway, he interviewed Rosemary Ellen Guiley back in the day, and she describes a fairy that lived with her, and the fairy that lived with her in one of her houses seemed to be comprised of tree branches and leaves. Huh. And there is a lot of that fairy dryad tree overlap, very tree-like entities. Maybe it's camo, because the two themes we're going to find is they're invisible, which then you can just see the tree behind it, which is, again, the X-Files episode, same idea. That seems to be a very common theme. Are you seeing the backdrop? Is there a being in front of it that really is just disguised as...
camouflage.
I don't know, but the overlap is clearly there.
Yeah, they are of the tree.
Yeah, I know. Huh. As a truly global theme, fairies with tree or vegetative features is such a huge and global section. This is just a quick overview because I'm beginning to understand there's no such thing as... I always try to do exhaustive lists. You can't get anywhere close in any of these subjects because everybody seems to have a variation in every little town or village or state or culture or region. But the commonality for many is that intertwinedness. And some people can't stay far from the tree. It's like a Dracula eating his native soil or Tempur-Pedic mattress. I can't travel without this neck pillow now. I got a Tempur-Pedic pillow.
Yeah, my pillow's big.
That's my pillow. But not my pillow guy. That's different. But up first on this little list is the dryad. They're usually young, beautiful women nymphs of nature and spirits. And they're, again, intertwined with the trees. In Mongolia, we mentioned this elemental somewhere in one of our podcasts. I think it was called the Lux when I talked about it. And this is spelled Lus, but it's L-U-S instead of L-U-X. Same region, but it seems like the same elemental, or maybe at least cousins. There's usually more of a protector or guardian of forest kind of theme to this little list we're about to go through. But this is from Yasmin Musherbash's Monster Anthropology. Wolves are not only feared for their attacks on her, but also for their association with the Lus, L-U-S, mentioned earlier. Lus is seen to reside primarily in the rivers and the mountains, usually invisible and ungendered. It can be benevolent to humans by ensuring an abundance of clean water and ripe berries, but can also become angry, especially if humans transgress taboos that inform human interaction with the landscape, which they call Bagal, which apart from the Lus also hosts many other spirit beings. As one informant explained, trees have life, mod arnatia. You should therefore always collect only the dead wood on the ground. If you break off a fresh branch, even by accident, you hurt the tree. It doesn't like that, so it will get upset with you. Maybe it is not that particular tree, Yag Termod, that will get upset at you. But the lus protecting the forest, if the lus gets upset, urlavel, it's very bad for you and your family. So there's a real revenge moment here that you might later run into misfortune because you did some transgression on the land, to the land, and specifically to the trees.
That's a very negative side of the anthropomorphism we do all the time with ourselves, is we think we're not a part of nature anymore.
Right.
That's never going to be a thing. We will always be a part of the nature of which we are a part.
But again, they outsourced the bad job in this case to the being protecting the tree. The tree's still okay. You hurt the tree. Now the little dude who lives in the tree is going to come get you.
Right.
And that's the anthropomorphication part of it.
Oh yeah, right. There's got to be a humanistic aspect to it
that we can relate to. That this dude's going to get not this bush is going to get us. Right. Masher bush. No, wait, that's the anthropologist.
Not this branch. It's going to weave its way through my sinuses and eye sockets and stuff.
Exactly. But
oh no, now I'm going to give myself nightmares.
But I am the Lysax. I speak for the trees, kind of thing. But that from human predation and animal sociality, the transformational agency of wolf people in Mongolia, Met M. Hai was the actual author, but it is in Yasmin Mushabash's Monster Anthropology.
Yeah, it was Hai when I met him too.
But one area with a steep connection between trees and monsters is the Philippines, as I mentioned. Remember the Enchanted? It was this giant moss-covered trees. Remember I did that opening thing with the giant trees by the cemetery, the barrio trees, and you said, we're talking about trees. They were just these trees that freaked everybody out that lived by the cemetery.
Yeah.
Filipino folklore is steeped with these big trees that just were unsettling to people, especially the ones on the edge of the cemetery.
Yeah, you definitely see a tree once in a while and like, weird.
Yeah, exactly. Scooby-Doo trees is what I call them.
Scooby-Doo tree, yeah.
We point them out when we're traveling. There's a Scooby-Doo tree.
There's that one on the way to Tucson.
Correct. That's the Scooby-Doo tree.
I want to film a video by that
we will
tree.
get a picture of that. We have to at some point. But there is this one elf tree tale. It's a Walking to the Bobog's House, it's called. It's a story about a man who goes for a walk. And this is again from M.D. Ramos's The Creature of Filipino Lower Mythology. It'll be in the show notes. But it's a story basically about this guy goes for a walk and he gets this tour of this mansion in a tree, and it turns out eventually he figures out he's talking to an elf, But there are endless such stories all across this archipelago and all across the Philippines that have these kind of spooky tree connect. All the monsters seem to live in trees in the Philippines. It's a jungle-y kind of place, so it's not a surprise.
Right, when you're in a rainforesty kind of environment, that makes sense.
Yep. And American officials in 1899 report of this from the Philippines, still back to Ramos' same book. All Monteses stand in a great dread of a certain parasitic tree, which wraps its branches about the trunk of some neighbor until it dies and decays, leaving a cavity surrounded by limbs that are interlaces and grown together. We were informed that there were white men inside the tree, and that its branches would bleed if cut. Yes, so this is where the colonizers start to mix with the myth and become these things.
If you want to make it scary, anthropomorphize a white man into it.
Exactly.
That works every time.
But that is what they do. The colonizers meld into the monsters more often than not. And that's another common theme. We don't talk about it a ton here. We do, but it's a common thing that becomes part of the dealio.
The colonizers are the face of the monster.
Yeah. And Japan, but like I said, Japan, here we go again. They have so many good monsters, and it's going to only get better or creepier depending on your idea of fun.
This is almost just a Japanese folklore. That's cool. I didn't realize that's where all this was going to come from. That's pretty cool.
But here are a couple of trees from Maddie's Mythical Tales, the ultimate guide to mythical earth and plant creatures and legend and folklore, in the show notes. First, from Papua New Guinea comes the Matakagaya tree spirit. Appearance is kind of a bulbous and ugly spirit creature with swollen cheeks and bellies, often seen near trees and swamps. The female has one very large breast and one very small breast. Its abilities, they will often appear to people who are ill or sick. One touch from this will kill you. But again, very associated with the tree. ... Second comes from Korean folklore, the Moksan Tongbop, wood imps. These appear, mostly they're invisible creatures, but they can disguise themselves as wooden objects so that they can gain entry into your house, kind of like how a vampire can't enter your home until it's invited. Abilities, these mischievous and unwanted creatures will slip into your home, will cause you illness and misfortune. They may in some rare cases result in death. If you do things to anger or frustrate it, such as rearranging your furniture or cutting down nearby trees for firewood, these are things that might anger it. Again, that's from the Ultimate Guide of Mythical Earth and Plant Creatures.
Almost sounds like some kind of gremlin.
Yeah.
It's very gremlin-y.
We will have goblins in trees, too, tonight. So it's kind of the same idea. But again, we got another invisible one. But this one's more vampiric.
And the asymmetrical too. The one that wasn't invisible had the one big breast and the one little breast kind of thing. Yeah. If they're not invisible, they're asymmetrical somehow, or their feet are on backwards, or there's always something weird.
Off. That was one column in my shapeshifter spreadsheet. Something off, and this is something that again, species wide, one large, one small.
Yeah,
and one on the back for slow dancing. That was married with children, but. I went there.
Why just one? Why not two?
Yeah, well, I don't know. This is
symmetry again. Symmetry.
And I didn't think ahead. You one step. It's tit for tat, But
wow.
I'm gonna clap. We're back. And we're back. But these are endless. Other nymphs, such examples, are truly endless. That one I wrote ahead of time, and I'm sorry about the timing. It's supposed to be anyway, I'm sorry. This again from naja.edu. I'm returning to this group. But Palestine, I found this through them, but Palestine has these sacred trees known as maskun, which are symbols of resistance within war-torn territories, described as both horrifying and healing. Again, the plant, horrifying and healing. It can't be just horrifying sometimes. But most of these, at least the ones we've discussed, it's hard to tease out the tree spirit from the actual tree monster. There's this blending I can't get away from over and over again.
You can't get away from goodness in trees. I mean, they have power, and it's like, kind of freaky in its way. But even the ones that they talk about as being evil, they blame it on something else. They blame it on an invading spirit, or they give it a good side at least, or something.
Right. It's a mixed bag. So the trope is you got a mysterious creature in the tree you can't distinguish from the tree, and then the other thing is you can't have a 100% evil tree. Huh. We do find a couple. Like I said, we're still on the hunt. We're still on the hunt.
Good.
But not many.
You need to do Moz level research to find this. Yeah, it's impressive.
It's tough. But first, creatures entwined with plant life. This is one that, again, this blending is where does the plant and then the beast begin? This is kind of another grouping. It's this endless entangling or interspecies becomings we've talked about. It's kind of back to monstrous microcosm, same idea. A lot of Selkie and Kelpie-like creatures have this seaweed or kelp-covered component to them. When things come out of the bog to kind of drag you in, they're covered in plant life and slime, and sometimes you don't know where does the creature end and where does this begin.
I can hold my breath for a long, long time.
See, we finally got that right. First time we struggled when we made that joke. But other times it seems harder to distinguish animal, vegetable, mineral. Particularly the kelpie is often mistaken for a bed of seaweed when motionless, and then it comes together, kind of morphs into an actual creature, and then it drags you to death.
Yeah, camouflage again.
The Yamasukami, this from Japanese folklore, is thrown into the dragon bucket here, but only because they don't have an octopus bucket. It's more octopus-like.
Yeah.
But this brings the, again, it's kind of a octopus so covered in algae and plankton and other plant life, it's described kind of like a mostopus kind of thing.
Crazy.
But oddly, with human teeth, it has human teeth, not a beak.
Wow.
Which is the other weird part.
I really wouldn't put it past the ocean to come up with something like that. There's so many weird things in the ocean.
Yeah.
Dude.
I just watched Grabbers, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't seen that in so long. I actually thought Simon Pegg was in that. It was like one of the first movies I thought I saw with Simon Pegg. It wasn't him, it was some other guy.
I love Simon Pegg. Yeah. He was Nandor Fodor.
Yeah. And then this brings us to the Biloko, Biloko. This from Teresa Bain's bestiary. In the folklore of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there's a vampiric creature called the Biloko, which means food also, said to live in the deepest sections of the rainforest with hollowed-out trees. The Biloko is said to be covered with grass and uses leaves as its clothing. Its long, sharp claws, piercing eyes, and a snout-like nose. The Biloko rings its magical bell, and anyone who hears it will fall asleep. It will then pick up its prey and swallow the person whole.
Whoa.
The Biloko because of its magical bell, is often appointed as the guardian of a hidden treasure. Fortunately, amulets and fetishes can be made to protect the wearer from the bell's magic. Yeah.
Why is it the same word as food?
Yeah, because
Is it because it eats everything, or is it because it eats you, makes you food, or that's a weird connotation?
It is. Like Homer could be called food. I feel like that would be a good.
sense.
That would make more sense. But the Boloko also kind of reminded me of the Busco, that giant turtle from Food.
Excuse me.
But Boloko reminded me of Busco, that giant turtle of Indiana fame, which, it too is often depicted covered in layers of slime and algae, like many lake creatures. It does make you wonder about misidentification again. Where does the flora stop and the fauna begin? One true blend of man and plant comes from where else? Japanese folklore. This from Teresa Baines Bestiary again. A yokai from Japanese folklore, the Doratabo, rice paddy man or mud man, first appeared in an 18th century book entitled Kanjaku Hayaka Shu, Tales of Monsters Then and Now, by Sekien Toriyami, an artist and scholar on Japanese folklore. As the Doratabo is more often heard than seen, the descriptions of this creature are vague and vary, but generally it's said to be made of the mud and the marshy bog of the rice paddy it lives in, smelling like rich peat, and possibly carrying the frogs, insects, and snakes which live in the paddies. Bipedal and other, only 3 fingers and a single eye in the center of its forehead. This creature never interacts with humans, but rather spends the night crying out in torment until dawn, because the creature is described as being moist, green, and composed of mud. It must be a seasonal being, existing only after the field is flooded, but after the seedlings are planted, as none of the descriptions or original drawings of it show any rice shoots composing its body. Stories of its creation vary, but centralize around a poor but hard-working farmer who turned a useless bit of land to a prosperous rice paddy. Some stories say he was cheated out of his land, while others say after his death his family sold it for the money in order to indulge in personal vices. So he's kind of the resurfacing guardian monster. And here's the other thing, that reminds me of the X-File, the HOA one, which was this golem-like creature summoned that came out that was mud and moss and grass. That's when they...
Reminds me of the toads in Winslow. They only come out when it rains.
Yeah, it only happens when it rains.
Yeah.
But another is a shapeshifter mermaid-type beastie from down under, so we're going to Australia now. And this is going to be from John Kachuba's Shapeshifter book again. I'll put this in the show notes. But, quote, like so many other cultures, the Aboriginals also have a shape-shifting water spirit in their pantheon of monsters. The Yok-Yok are murderous fish-tailed women with long flowing hair made of green algae that lurk in rivers and deep water holes. As a shapeshifter, they take on human female form and entice unwise men to their watery death by drowning.
Sirens.
But they're described as actual having hair that is algae, so they're part plant.
Yeah.
We go back to these same kind of themes over and over again.
Is there a hybrid out there somewhere that actually blends the plant and the animal? That's... Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, that's back to prokaryotic, eukaryotic
Again,
stuff.
if it's going to happen, it's in the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. But first lead into this category of actual why we're here, the plant that will eat you,
All
truly
right.
evil creatures.
Yeah, let's go, Moz.
The first lead came from the show Grimm, because that show tried to keep to the folklore. Sometimes it strayed a bit, but I'd always kind of take notes because, why not? But they mentioned the Kineshimobi, which drags people to the Jiboko tree, where they are forever entombed in the tree. These two in the episode act like guardian elementals, but they're kind of, again, attacking polluters, but they have this symbiotic relationship where the one that can walk, which is part plant, drags it to the tree, and the polluter is then, subsumed and absorbed into the tree. And again, all the faces are in the tree. It's a creepy kind of episode.
Yeah.
So the Kanisha Mobi, I could not find it. Doesn't mean it's not based on something. If anyone knows more, again, monsterloretour@gmail.com. But the Jiboko does show up in Japanese mythology. That is an actual tree described as exactly what we're looking for, something that will entomb you, entangle you, and absorb you.
Wow.
And it's the twisted tree of death in yokai lore is what it's called. It tends to grow on the site of old battlefields, and it feeds off the fallen warriors. The Jiboko means strangling tree. And there's no safe word, I asked. Yeah. And it does pounce. Its base doesn't move, but like the movie, like the triomatic ascar, those devil snares in Africa, it will reach out and grab you and pull you in.
It's kind of like the jumping choya.
Yeah, and there's no thing that I can find with this Kanishina mobi kind of working together with it, and I couldn't even find that. So the Kanishina mobi is sold separately. You can just get the jiboko. But another beastie from Japan is called the akateko, which features a red child's hand dangling from a tree like a lure.
Whoa.
And if this isn't enough, there's a hypnotically beautiful woman hanging out at the base of the tree as well. You come close enough, and it does the same thing.
Whoa.
So it's got the one like, oh, look, the novelty thing drawing you in. And the other is like, oh, there's a pretty girl at the base of the tree. It's almost a reverse of the Bodhi tree thing with the Buddha.
Well, it's like a way better version of the sheep tree.
A way better version of the sheep tree. Yeah. You got a sheep problem there, you do.
Yeah, right. Well, the sheep tree just has sheep on it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure
Just
the lady
sheep,
and the baby.
like you're not impressed enough by that. Just sheep.
That tree's going to bring you in and eat you.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking for some mutton,
There should
the
definitely
mutton's really lean.
They should definitely make a movie where they transform the sheep tree into a cannibalistic man-eating tree.
Yeah, I agree.
That'd be brilliant.
But they were both either China or Japan. I mean, they have most of these weird trees for sure. But then finally, I decided to arbitrarily move the leshy from the wood spirit elemental section to this part of it as a global monster, because when you're talking about half man and half beast, the leshy can mess you up. The leshy can be really mostly good or just a protector, but also has a really dark side. We touched on the leshy before. Never touch a leshy, actually.
No.
Probably a bad idea. But it comes from Slavic. It's a Slavic wood spirit with horns and bark sticking out. Some depictions, it looks similar to a actually kind of skin
Walker
or Wendigo with these sticks jutting out of its head instead of horns, grass and vines for a beard. Also, like many shapeshifters across the globe, it will lead people off the trail in the woods and can mimic loved ones to lure off the path like everything else.
There it is.
It is more of a elemental spirit most of the time, like Serenos or a tree elf. But it's not necessarily as nasty, but it can be. So I kind of moved it here because this beast can kill you. Here's John Kachuba's take on this. We're hearing from him again from his shapeshifters. As a shapeshifter, the leshy can transform into any plant or animal it chooses, but it can also shapeshift in a human form, typically that of a peasant with glowing eyes. The leshy can also shrink itself to only a few centimeters or can stretch to the height of the tallest trees.
Oh, wow.
It's another common trope that we've come across. Tiny or big. High behind can kind of do that. The long guaper, which Kachuba mentioned somewhere else, same idea. Mm-hmm. They get very small, very big. And the longa whopper was the one that could like get very small and crawl around like the water of the canals like a little bug, or it can get 3 stories tall and looking through windows. So that is another shapeshifter kind of trope that we've talked about. But Kachuba also mentions Ovid's Metamorphosis, wherein a number of women or dryads transform into trees to escape the clutches of men. The most famous, we already talked about, Daphne and Apollo. But here's the appearance and abilities I found in the Ultimate Guide to Mythical Earth and Plant Creatures take on the leshy. I quoted this one before, but back to this lady. Appearance of her version of the leshy is very large humanist creature with bright green eyes, bluish pale skin, and drooping green vines, shrubbery for hair. They have long branch-like limbs which make it easy for them to camouflage themselves within their wooded forest. Leshy is a protector of forests and wildlife, would often play tricks on lost travelers by giving them wrong directions or imitating different voices. However, if you were to befriend a leshy, they would share magical knowledge and secrets of nature with you. So they, again, most of these trees, you can't get as evil as you want.
You can still make friends with them, though.
You can try.
I think it's cool they get the green eyes even.
Yeah.
You get the yellow and the red a lot, and you even see blue sometimes, but I don't think we've ever heard green-eyed monster on this before.
Yep. Here's Britannica's kind of view of the leshy, which added a couple of things in the show notes. His eyebrows, eyelashes, and right ear are missing. Again, something off.
There you go.
His head is somewhat pointed, and he lacks a hat and belt, so he can't accessorize very well.
He lacks a hat and belt.
I think that's important.
He's so out of fashion.
Yeah, like what is he thinking? Did you really leave the house like that, tree dude?
Was that written in the 1800s?
Yeah,
Because how many
probably.
people are going to notice
Who's
no
gonna
hat
notice
and
that?
belt now?
There's a tree monster without any accessories. Like,
I wouldn't have known he was
bring
a
him to
monster.
Kohl's.
But then I noticed he didn't have his hat.
Yeah. You're right.
How do you prove a negative? How do you prove a negative?
I'm with you on that. I thought it was worth mentioning.
It was, but I'm going to call him out where I see him.
Yeah. But it dings a lot of boxes, though. We keep hitting that back to that Van Helsing diagram for paranormalists everywhere. Again, we find these things. We have mentioned many of these before, but boy, do they hit the same themes. Of course, these are the tree ones, but they, just like every other shapeshifter, they seem to have the same bag of tricks. Oh, and in season 2, the Witcher fights a nasty tree monster, the Leshin, that breaks into the hall and messes up some of his friends in a very kind of Grendel-like scene. The Leshin is a variation of the Leshy, I assume.
It's got to be, right?
Yeah,
That
more or less.
phraseology. More or lessin.
Yeah, something like that. And kind of a feature, our last one, our spotlight critter here, I found the Kodama from Japanese folklore. No surprise. Very interesting plant being that could only surface from a culture at ease with plant beings in general. Etymologically, it roughly means tree spirit, but later came to mean tree-dwelling goblin. Again, is it a tree? Is it a goblin? Is it a floor wax? Is it a dessert topping?
The goblins are green.
Yeah, the green goblin.
Yeah.
Case in point.
Yeah, like even in D&D, they're green.
Yeah.
I never really considered that might mean they're plant-based.
Yeah. We think of them as cave, like dwarf, goblin, cave.
But what if they're just like
air?
What if they're moss or even a fungus or something?
Yeah.
But green, I guess, would be more mossy.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a moss.
Yeah. There was Boss Moss from the Freakies. If anyone was like over 60.
No. Well, some people here might be, but I'm not.
That was a great cereal, by the way. I had all the Freakies as a kid. But
Freakies.
the word Yama keeps showing up with respect to plant monsters, and Yama also has a death connotation. Yama is death in certain cultures.
Wow.
But there's two versions of these. One, they can move from tree to tree, kind of maybe Tarzan style, but the other version, they are rooted and they can't move. So if you chop these down by accident, they bleed, and it's another beastie that doesn't take too kindly to that shit. They are described as tree-like or invisible again, so thus disguised as trees, or the guardian, or the tree, or is it the moving tree? Is it the person? Is it anthropomorphized? It's variations of the same thing. Even when we get away from something that we couldn't really find, when we do find it, it follows the same themes, which I find odd.
So it follows.
Yeah. Best defense for these guys. Start thinking. Put your thinking cap on.
Already on it, buddy.
There are legends of free-roaming plant spirits, as we just discussed with the Kodama. Most lore has them firmly rooted unless it's the little being that goes after you later. So best defense, get an app for the dangerous trees in the area and just set up your nice picnic accordingly. Like if you're at Hogwarts, find out where the Whomping Willow is. Don't park under it with your little picnic basket, or you're not going to get a second date.
The ultimate power is knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have the knowledge, they cannot hold power over you.
Right. And the other thing, if they are moving tree monsters, my dream team, I would take the Evil X from Scott Pilgrim with the vegan power. He has the power of the plant and very impressive skill set. Develops from his strict vegan diet. He could overpower the monster and potentially create a wonderful salad out of the remains. This is, of course, if he got his vegan powers back, because otherwise he's kind of a douchebag, and who'd want to hang out with him? Or I'm taking the Egyptian cow goddess Hathor. She's mostly cow, and she's a goddess. If you invite her over and don't feed her for a while, she'll gnaw any plant to death, I'm sure, that you bring out with her into the woods. So I'm going with an Egyptian goddess and maybe Scott Pilgrim.
Cow goddess.
Yeah.
That's a rare one. That's an obscure one.
There you go.
You ready?
Yep.
Ash Williams from Evil Dead. Chainsaw hand and boomstick. Let's go, buddy.
We never used
Let's
him?
go, buddy.
Haven't we used that?
I don't think we have.
All right.
I would remember.
Well, I feel like we mentioned him.
Ash
Maybe.
Williams with his chainsaw hand and his boomstick, taking on any plant you want to throw at him, man. I have faith in that, man.
And he did have to fight plants in Evil Dead.
There you go. It was part of it.
That was part of that. And getting into the theory section here, Jung was enamored. I always have to have a little mythic Jung section. Sorry, folks. But Jung was enamored by plants and trees. After all, the tree was a great representation of something with a side we could see consciousness, and then the side of the roots, the deep underground unconsciousness. He always thought that was a great metaphor. In his red book, his personal journal, he apparently had a run-in with this during one of his active imagination sessions. He comes across a tree being like Treebeard. So you delve deep enough into one's psyche, and that cold cytoplasmic plant consciousness finally does surface, but they must inhabit some of those deepest inaccessible parts, it seems. Jung is very much a pioneer of participatory epistemology, or knowledge through alternate states of consciousness. What may be, again, a different, like we usually do the creature teacher through ayahuasca or psilocybin, or taking some things, or talking to a shaman who said he got the message from the plants. But he's just going into this deep, this altered state of his own, and finding his own creature teacher that came out to teach him. It's kind of a different variation of that theme in a way.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Here's a Jung quote, and this is from Memory, Dreams, and Reflections. It'll be in the show notes. Trees in particular were mysterious and seemed to me direct embodiment of the incomprehensible meaning of life. For that reason, the woods were the place where it felt closest to the deepest meaning and to its awe-inspiring workings. He had an experience also with flowers one time, and this is his insights from the same book. Quote, I was attracted to them for a reason I could not understand, with a strong feeling that they ought to be pulled up and dried. They were living beings which had meaning so long as only they were growing and flowering, a hidden secret meaning, one of God's thoughts. I thought that was cool. Yeah, Jung got pretty deep. I've been enjoying his work. Jung always saw the roots of the trees as the perfect metaphor, again, for that which reaches down into the unconscious, the roots, the inorganic realms, the mineral kingdom. He's always trying to get to the root of the matter, pardon the pun. But I also found one tribe, or more accurately, anthropologist Victor Turner found this tribe. He describes one that had the same idea. They came up with a word. They loved the trees that had exposed roots because it was that which was becoming unrevealed, or that which was once hidden, and they actually created a word for it. The word is wuvumba, derived from the verb kuvumboka, meaning to be unearthed. So they had the kind of same idea, this intrigue with things that were now being exposed and that you could see. And I think they were on the same page. I could be wrong on that one.
Yeah.
As for my shamanic shapeshift complex, I found this from James Mooney's Cherokee Myths, and I thought it was cool. Quote, the only thing of which the rattlesnake is afraid is said to be the plant known as campion, or rattlesnake's master, Selene stellata, which is used by doctors to counteract the effect of the bite, and is believed that a snake will flee in terror from the hunter who carries a small piece of the root about his person. Chewed lin bark is also applied to the bite, perhaps from the supposed occult connection between the snake and the thunder, as this tree said to be immune from the lightning stroke. That from James Mooney's Cherokee Myths. So I thought that was, a plant that actually puts the fear of God into a rattlesnake. I thought that was worth mentioning.
I am definitely getting myself a piece of campion root sometime soon.
Have a little bit with you.
Hiking season.
Can't hurt. Best defense. And remember that bit from somewhere. That's actually best defense for we do a Yig episode. Or snake monsters. Remember that bit from somewhere in the mausoleum when you see your grandfather give him some tobacco? Mm-hmm. That same theme we keep coming across, where native folklore meet monsters, so the protagonist treats them as a relative, offers them some gifts. Brad Steiger captures this as well on the plant side of things. So here's a quote from Brad. Anchors Evelyn Donna K. Bartholomew, who spent 5 years with cross-cultural shamans studying the ways of many different traditions, agrees. In the shamanistic tradition, she writes, all creatures are called relatives and are considered sisters, brothers, and grandparents. Non-human relatives are considered people and are prayed for. The birds, winged ones, the trees, tall standing people, the plants, green growing people. That from Brad Steiger, the Werewolf Book, Encyclopedia of Shapeshifting
It's all
Beings.
one thing, man. It's all one thing.
But here we go. Native Americans refer to these trees as tall standing people, and the plants are green growing people.
Yeah.
Talk about a perennial philosophy that, like I said, keeps coming back.
They are correct.
But does that make landscapers barbers? And that's our side trail tonight. No.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's anthropologist Sharon Mertz when we talked about crocodiles. She came in, but she's mentioning James Frazier and the Golden Bow for this one. Quote, Frazier emphasized that totemic societies consider their animals as kin and having human status. He summarized the essence of totemism as an identification of a man with his totem, whether his totem be an animal or plant or whatnot. So again, we see that theme of shape-shifting theme of a shapeshifter. They always put in a rock or an inanimate object or a plant to say, hey, they can. But the stories that come down to us are not the shaman that turned into some kind of shrub.
Help, I'm a rock.
Shrubbery.
Help, I'm a rock.
Yeah, it didn't.
Help,
yeah.
I'm a rock.
It's not a great story. So we just sat there, and the shaman remained a rock. Yeah, end of story, right? I don't know. Maybe that's why we don't get them. Again, that was from Sharon Mertz's work, and when she asked are crocodiles the soul of the community. That Mertz study we discussed, we'll have that in the show notes. That was from West Benin, Africa, the Bebelibe, if you remember that group.
Oh, yeah, the Bebelibe.
So again, we find that shaman shapeshifter theme.
That was episode 43.
Well done, sir.
The shape-shifting crocodiles.
Well done. But last note from peer review land, there is the slow but steady drumbeat to be a little more accepting of this way we presence with other entities, beings, and creatures. This is opening your mind real wide when we start talking about plants. One more time, I got naja.edu. That's the study that I found. Specifics will be in the show notes, of course. As such, this research rejects the soulless materialism of demonic geographies and joins calls for non-metaphorical paranormal geographies defined by radical ontological openness. By doing so, this work builds upon burgeoning research on spirited topographies of sacred space, as well as recent research exploring the deep connection between the environment and spiritual sacred understandings of place. So, dude, we're talking about radical ontological openness.
Yeah.
Which is, again, what Sharon Mertz was talking about. With how we presence with these other entities we come across, be it plant, rock, or creature.
Right, like a lot of humans think that in order to be intelligent, you have to be some sort of human.
Yeah.
That isn't just not the case.
Yeah. It gets more radical, this ontology. This way of being in the world has changed. This research has really given me that better, wider understanding of how we interact with things. And this interspecies becoming piece, back to monstrous microcosm, that it's all relationality, how we relate to everything.
Yeah. And, I'm a philosopher myself, but I've been considering the oneness of all things for a long time in a real way. So I know exactly what you're talking about right now, Mo.
Yeah.
Because really, in the end, it's all one life that we're all a part of.
How we interact with things are so vastly different. We're nowhere near one yet, because these things are different, whether it's inside or outside, upside or downside, whether they project through us or whether they're there in the environment ready to devour us, or whether we create a projection that then devour. It gets very but how we interact with things is becomes more and more mind-blowing the deeper you get into this stuff.
Right.
I'll just put it that way.
I mean, there's functions in our body that are run by things that if our immune system recognized them, it would try to kill them.
Yeah.
So the immune system has learned to just ignore it.
Yeah. I know.
Even just in our body, there's weird interrelations like that to make the whole thing work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, endless from the microcosm to the microcosm.
Just scale that up, and the same weird stuff happens between us and nature, kind of thing.
And we were just talking about even the physicists who see more and more connections between how the universe lays out and how it looks like a giant brain. Like everything just gets weirder and weirder the more you look at everything.
It's because it is.
It's all rabbit holes within rabbit holes within rabbit holes.
I call them wormholes now because they go on forever. They go on forever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, people have complained about that. We are trying to cut down our time. Okay, guys?
That's what we do.
Yeah. I did find an old Iroquois and Huron legend wherein there's this passage of the dead that involves crossing a swift-moving stream bridged by a tree trunk, which kind of rolls, makes an extra challenge points. It's like, when they do that Gladiator TV show. Mm-hmm. But you need to traverse this to get to the happy hunting ground kind of thing. But then we talked about Nanabotso at different times. He was that proto-shaman, that Algonquin proto-shaman. And one of the things, and he was the head of the Metawaywin Society. Remember, he gave the medicine, and it was back when we talked about otters and all that stuff. Yeah. But he could shapeshift into a stump or a tree trunk, too. So now, is he part of this portal guardian-y thing? Is it, again, it ties into trees and the portal guardians. And he was already he had an otter yak and he was part rabbit, and he had all this stuff going on. But he can also transform into a tree trunk, which happens to be, is this a portal guardian thing? Crossing a swift stream, and that's the portal guardian. The tree trunk itself, is that does it keep tying in with more and more things?
I have a question just popped into my brain from you saying that. Mm-hmm. Totem poles with the animals carved into them, is that infusing that tree with the spirit of those animals?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way they look at that.
And then they can hang stuff on it to get the power of those animals from the tree?
Yeah, and it's a depiction of the Axis Mundi, so it is the journey of the portal guardians at the base, the portal guardians at the top, each one of them at a different level. This is why I think when Jeffrey Cohen's talking about monster theory and thresholds of change, each one of those shifts in that totem is you have to pass some kind of guardian, some kind of test. It's like beating the big boss at the end of the level.
But they would always carve it into trees.
Yeah. And again, the world tree is the mountain or the world tree. The world tree is the Axis Mundi. The tree itself, the plants themselves could be the part of the portal guardian piece of this.
The fact that they make it out of trees actually means something. It's not just because it was there.
Yeah.
It's not made out of stone. It's made out of wood.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to the paradoxical passage, back to portal guardians, back to monsters, back to proto-shamans. Trees as hurdles or as psychopomps. This opens the door on that a little bit, potentially. If anyone knows more or thinks we're crazy and went off on a crazy tangent, monsterlotor@gmail.com.
I'm going to have to send us an email. I definitely think we're crazy.
I think we should. Another interesting one is the Jed, D-J-E-D. When Osiris's coffin is encased by that tree, he becomes part of his resurrection. There's a tree that grows in him. The tree pillar is the Jed, another mythical motif, the intertwining of wood and God, and Axis Mundi, same idea. There's a note to myself not to make a Woody Harrelson joke, so I'm not going to do that. Of course. See, now my notes about jokes are just don't do that.
To that.
Just
Cheers to that.
We just lost Norm too.
That's an original Woody Harrelson joke.
That's right. From a guy from Boston.
It's the only reason I know that.
But of course, the best creature teachers, as mentioned, are related to either mushrooms or ayahuasca. Here's Graham Hancock, another MLT all-star, in his book Supernatural. Quote, "So the material world needs the spirit world too. Ayahuasca and similar master plants appear to provide a direct means of communication with the spirit realm from sentient beings of the material world. The plants educate us by allowing us to experience and vision the reality of the supernatural, something normally impossible or very difficult for us to do as material-bound creatures." So it is it's a leap. It's that leap. But if countless shamans believe plants to be creature teachers, well, I guess these would be chloroprofs. But they would find more plant entities. I don't know why we don't find more plant entities in the woods if this is the case. If there's so many creature teachers, why didn't Dorothy, the shaman of the Wizard of Oz, take one of those apple-lobbing trees with her on the Yellow Brick Road quest? She took everyone else with her. She forgot the tree. Mm-hmm. But I came around to this again, even post my research. I asked, why no plant teachers on the top of mountains? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I do have a theory I could lay on you.
Do it.
That's been kind of
building in my brain. This is theory time.
Relationality, call it. Our trees aren't our monsters. Mm-hmm. They're monsters in a certain right. You talked about one earlier that feeds off other trees.
Right.
That kind of cannibalistic. But I've watched enough nature shows. What if we asked the bugs what kind of monsters the trees are? Have you seen the things that trees do to bugs?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're talking about looking for the man-eating plant. Mm-hmm. The Venus flytrap eats bugs all day.
Yeah.
Ask the bugs if that's a monster, and they're going to be like, oh my God,
yeah.
I hope I never have to see one in real life. I didn't even know they were really real. Are those really real? Oh my God, I can't believe those are real.
Bernie! That's how I lost Birdie.
But that might be, so relationality-wise, trees aren't our monsters. Mm-hmm. They're the bugs' monsters.
Right.
And the bugs see the trees like we see our monsters. There's animals that we relate with just fine. Like there's trees that the bugs relate with just fine. For the most part, it's just fine.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, they come across one that they're like, oh my God, this is going to kill us all if we don't get the hell out of here.
But what about back to the creature teacher question that I just asked? Why don't we have more? And you're right, there are also monsters, because the creature, Bonjacry, everything we've come across has been a monstrous teacher. If you fail the test, sometimes there's really bad consequences.
Right.
But if there's a creature teacher, why there's not many. They're pervasive yet elusive, I guess is the way
Yeah.
to look at it.
Yeah.
They're everywhere yet nowhere.
Well, they're everywhere, but you don't know it until they want you to.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're kind of at their mercy.
But we're still not hearing the story. People don't come back and say, I met a creature teacher, I did a terrible job and it smashed me in the head with a branch, or I did a wonderful job and it taught me this.
Right.
We do get the things, again, from ayahuasca and psilocybin, but they don't. These do not follow the same monster teacher, creature teacher moments.
Right. Well,
although the intermediary, again, of the fairy is there, and that is the merger between.
Yeah.
Again,
I would make a relationality argument there that's just our relation to plants. They do alter. I mean, look at how many psychedelics come from plants.
Yeah.
All of them.
Well, I'm just saying. Then why doesn't that become?
That is a teacher.
The teacher part's down. I'm not. Graham Hancock just called it master plant, so I'm not arguing that point. But there's usually a monster associated with a teacher.
There are frightening moments in those psychedelics, man. Ask anyone who's done like 3 days on ayahuasca or taken, maybe too much LSD at one time, things like that. There are monsters in there.
Oh, no argument.
But again, it's a blend. It's never just straight up evil. It has
but
the
it
good
also,
and bad side.
even the depictions of what's attacking you when you take ayahuasca as a snake or a jaguar, it is not a tree monster, although it came from a plant. I'm just saying why. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is that yes, we see all these monsters becoming evolved, but we don't associate monster with plant as readily.
That might be because it is somewhat formed by our own psyche, and where we are,
it's too far back.
Anthropomorphizing or
we can only do that for so long. We can't go back to procreate.
In order for the message to get through to our minds, it has to be in a form we can understand. And the closer it is, so that's what the symbol of the thing. The tree isn't a symbol of that to us. The serpent is a very scary but powerful symbol in our psyches. So the trees just don't hold that place with us.
But and again, let's look at it this way: the tree of life, Axis Mundi, snake at the bottom, thunderbird at the top. Those are two things you meet in the tree. But the actual portal seems to be represented in some other more highly evolved form beyond tree. And the tree may be the smart one.
There you go.
Who's doing all of it. But I don't understand. It's enmeshed, and yet there's a piece missing from this puzzle, I guess is the way I would just
that's tough. I'm going to have to
do a lot of weed.
Think a lot on that.
Because I know that's your
going to have to meditate
plant.
on that.
But from a literary and sociological perspective, and back to that T.S. Miller study again, he channels Jeffrey Cohen in some aspects of his monster theory and discusses the purpose of the monster plant as another variation of the cultural, kind of boundary holder. Remember, Jeffrey Cohen's theory points to monsters as the boundaries and at the thresholds of change. And we're going to go into more of that. I think I've mentioned it a lot, but I don't know how deeply we've gone into it.
The big boss is at the end of the level.
Yeah. But the quote, the monster, this is from that T.S. Miller study, quote, the monster of prohibition exists to demarcate the bonds and hold together that system of relations we call culture, to call horrid attention to the borders that must not be crossed. And again, that's Cohen on monster culture. And this is back to Miller now. And it was all Miller, but he has a Jeffrey Cohen quote within there. Quote, we might say that anthropophagus plants emerges from anxious awareness of universal common descent and its implications for human-plant relationships, but also serves the cultural purpose of containing that fear and restoring the hermetic instrumentalist hierarchy that subordinates other animals to humans and backgrounds plants entirely. And this is, again, what he's saying basically is we try to put things in the buckets, which is what I always do. But with plants, they're subordinate to the animal kingdom, and likewise the animals are more subordinate to humanity. So we're at the top, and then it goes to animals, and it goes to plants. Okay. He's saying there's a perceived ontological hierarchy or pecking order which may be totally wrong and false. If when you hear Graham Hancock say the master plants,
Right.
And the very existence of plant monsters really topples all that. So again, it's back to where we started. It's really hard to wrap our heads around these or even contemplate.
Yeah.
But this is also why you should consider becoming an MLT Plantreon member. Share us on your favorite social plant forum and leave a kelp review.
Plantreon.com/monsterlore
But plant sentience and anthropophagism is far out of any ideological lane. It's usually blocked and stricken from any related thoughts. We found something similar when studying owl monsters because the owl is so associated with death. We don't want to think about it. So by blocking out the owl man, we remember we did that? We're kind of ignoring Yama. I'll start that again because I guess we were not paying attention. No, I explained it. Let me just do that again.
No, you said owl man. I said who?
Oh, I get you. Sorry.
Come on,
I should have just.
You are out of practice.
I'm tired. But plant sentience and anthropophagism is far, out of any ideological lane. So it's usually blocked or stricken from any related thoughts. We found something similar kind of happened when we did owl monsters. We kind of blocked out owls because they're so associated with death. They're so associated with Yama. That's how Owlman becomes the Mothman. We don't even want to call them Owlman. This is the same idea with plants. We can't really. Owls, it's because of death, so we ignore them. Plants, we can't really connect to the plant.
It's anymore. The only hieroglyph that breaks the fourth wall.
It
stares
straight
out at you.
Exactly. And since we're returning again to this theme, we came back to T.S. Miller one more time. I want to give him our official Mad Cujos tonight, Revenge of the Vegetable and the Age of Animal Studies. And if you recall, he even got us our mood quote with that Strangland quote.
Oh, yeah.
So he did a lot for us today. So
here's some extra Cujos then.
Down boy!
And speaking of the guy, we got one more quote from that study. Again, the monster plant seems born of an anxiety about universal common descent, and perforce reminds us that the zoocentric perspective also backgrounds unicellular organisms and stranger forms of life, and indeed non-life, as a new materialist might well accuse a plant studies of biocentrism or biochauvinism, ... And there's a blind spot for many who work in animal studies, including and perhaps especially for some of its foundational theorists. Equal consideration of the plant alongside the animal does raise uncomfortable questions about how far our kinship with non-animal, non-humans should and can extend. What does that kinship mean in practical terms, and what demands does it make on us? And that's, again, the edge of that radical ontological openness. Plants are still at the edge of that. We just can't
quite bring ourselves that far.
I think that's why we don't find monster plants in subreddit groups all the time. We find them in after those hoaxes, and after we found the pitcher plant and the Venus flytrap, all of a sudden we got all this literature about it, but it still never became something we meet in the woods horribly often. It's plant-like, but it's not a monster. Or if it is, it has to send the tree has to send a monster to us.
Right,
it's not the monster.
It's the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yep. It really.
It's fairies.
Exactly.
It's the anthropomorphism of the tree spirit.
Yeah. And the woodsy thing, we're not going to do much of this because this is more related to the mycelium stuff. But Cohn's work, Kohn, he came up with, I found one really cool example of how sophisticated forests communicate with each other. And basically they can make the tannins, more tannins in the leaf, so the leaf becomes more bitter, so the insects don't want the leaf. And they can do this based on communication. Like, hey, it's starting. These little bastards showed up. Remember those guys from last spring? Mm-hmm. They're back. So the fact that trees can do that, and again, we'll talk about a lot of this when we get into mycelium. So this is just a teaser. It's just a teaser.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
But it again shows you a level of intelligence. So we're always surprised, and when you research something, it actually doesn't make sense from, like, I would say, the world doesn't make sense from a Scully Muggle, Richard Dawkins kind of perspective. It makes no sense. His world doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
The crazy rabbit holes within wormholes we find seem to be more what we have to deal with as, people trying to find meaning.
Yeah.
I don't know, the Scully Muggles of the world they're missing out.
Their normality just doesn't hold up in the light of day.
No, I agree. Which brings us to Ahu Guano, theory of the week.
That makes sense.
Oh no, here it comes.
Quick, to the batshit signal.
Back to the Kadoma and other plant spirits for a moment. Here's my thought on plant-to-human communication. We have one direct way. You consume the mushroom, speak to those beings, or gain direct communication through Mother Ayahuasca. But it seems more ancient people did not have these stark demarcations between plant and animal kingdoms, or such prejudices that block the flow of knowledge. This would be phloem knowledge, because for all those botanists out there, because it's phloem brings the stuff up and xylem brings it down within the tree. But for one, the Japanese thought trees were special. But again, back to that Kadoma, the inhabitants are more open to any form and source of knowledge. So again, Native American perspectives, relying on immanent spirits intertwined in all things. What if, and this is specifically my Ahu Guano theory, the second form of communication between plant and people works like this? What if the tree gives the dryad its marching orders? What if the fairies are simply the messengers, the liaison, the tricksters? That those creatures we anthropomorphize are this middle ground betwixt and between, but the god, like the master plant, back to that, it's pulling the strings, the hierarchy's wrong. It's the tree itself. If the tree has access to those little beings, it really is, it could be a very different form of intelligence that we don't understand, that is actually the puppet masters in its own way.
See, to line it up with running MLT theories, that would basically make the fairies, or the tree, the anthropomorphized tree spirit, the plant shaman, which is the go-between between the thing itself and the spirit, or like the other side. The go-between between the realms.
Yeah,
is really kind of the role of the shaman.
Yeah,
and that's what the fairy, or whatever it may be, is doing. It's playing that go-between,
right,
between the tree and us.
Yeah.
So they're basically shaman.
Yeah.
They're plant shaman.
Yeah. And they have little henchmen,
That's cool. I like that theory.
Because we always think the fairy is in charge of the tree. Tree may well be in charge of the fairy. So
could
be wrong.
It almost makes more sense that way,
Yeah.
honestly.
That's my Ahu Guano.
That's why you don't always see them. They only send them out when they want to, kind of thing. They're not an individual being that is just living in the woods in the tree like a bird. They're actually a part of the tree, and when the tree sees a situation where, like, damn, this is a tough one, I'm going to have to call the fairy out, and then they release the fairy, and when it's done doing whatever it was released to do, it's a part of the tree again.
Right. And just like if we had those two things we came across, the invisible being or the being that's made of plant-based material, MLT, we have Ahu Guano, this segment, we have two kind of sections. One group is totally just funny and batshit, and some of them make a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
So this is one of those ones that's betwixt and between that.
That made the batshit make a little more sense. How about that?
There you go. Exactly. Then we have our Scully Muggle bit.
The Scully Muggle Skeptics Review.
You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
What can plant consciousness teach humans? It's nothing that if we have a hard time with it, the Scully Muggle is not going to be following any of this and think it's all nonsense. And I think the psychonauts have it right. I think they're open. They have a radical ontological openness because of the fact that they do some of these things, and they're connecting to entities, and they're seeing the world in a very different way. And it's just not something our friends on the Steven Pinker and Richard Dawkins side of the world are really ever gonna, give even the time of day. And I think it's sad.
Yeah. They're just going to say, go smoke some more reefers, hippie.
Exactly. And on that note, that's what we got to do. But we still have one more, our Wolfman Puck.
Oh, my favorite, Wolfman Puck's Cryptid Culinary Corner.
Your entree, sir. Oh, smells good.
So what, you going first or am I going first? It's your call.
I mean,
sometimes you think when I go.
I made a veggie stir fry last night that was really good. What are we talking about here? I'm going to let you go to get a feel of what we're doing.
All right. I'm making eggplant parmigiano Actually, no, I'm not doing it. I'm making
This is the most like non-thing. Right
no.
now.
I made it a thing.
Okay.
Stuffed pumpkin head. The pumpkin will be stuffed with an impossible meat, but to saute the onions and celery for the stuffing, I'll be substituting triffid for the truffle oil. And of course, if you eat the pumpkin head stuffing, you replace the pumpkin head stuffing on the table for the next holiday season. So this is going to be something we're going to make and give it to Cisco.
And Greg.
And Greg, yeah, they were both here earlier, and they can have it. But I and of course, yeah, we'll order Hub Grub, and they can have that. But I have a beer to flavor this with here, the Hemperor from New Belgium. It's a CBD infused beer.
Oh, nice.
Or for backup, honorable mention, Hop Chronic has a THC infused IPA from Flying Dog Brewing. So I think the name of it is Hop Chronic, and the brewery is Flying Dog Brewery.
Okay, then.
Yeah. See,
Nice.
now you know what we're doing.
Hops are a wonderful plant.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you gave me the opportunity because I did think of something.
All right.
Tree mutton stew.
Ooh, because
Remember the sheep tree?
Yeah.
I'm going to harvest
Yeah.
the sheep from the sheep tree and make mutton stew
Yeah.
in a plant episode.
Nice.
Wow. See what I pulled off right there? And then you know what I'm going to do with the mutton stew? I'm going to feed it to the plant from Little Shop of Horrors.
There you go. There you go. You know, we can.
What do you think of that?
You can actually, instead of watering it, you can just sprinkle it with curry every day. So the lamb's going to get
There you go.
marinating before you ever get that ready. But you know, a lot of you did really reverse it back into meat when this is really not a meat
right?
episode.
Right?
though.
But
But
it's
you're
meat
proud
that
of
grew
that.
on a tree.
That's true.
That's a
Yeah.
great thing
Yeah.
to serve at Wolfman Pucks.
Yeah, it's hickory flavored.
Although
lamb.
I'm sorry to say the only thing you get to drink with it is rainwater
Why?
because it's plant themed and plants drink rainwater.
That's terrible.
I know the drink sucks, but
Yeah.
the tree mutton stew is pretty good though, right?
Yeah.
And I feed it to a plant.
Yes.
After I make meat stew out of a plant, I
Yeah.
feed it to a plant.
Wow.
It's pretty good,
It's
right?
dark. You have to have a radical culinary openness.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I just failed some psych tests, but I enjoyed the process.
There you go. Well, I think nobody won that one. I think we both failed.
I want some mutton stew.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I got some slow cooked pulled pork inside we can go get.
Let's do that now.
So yeah, let's get out of here. If you like what you heard, please hit the happy little fun buttons on whatever platform you're on, the likes and subscribes and shares and all that. We got a Patreon, patreon.com/monsterlore Join for as little as it's $1 a month, right? Just $1 a month these days.
You can't end with us.
I don't
with a-
know.
You
We're
can't end with us doing a pulled pork reference.
I thought it was kind of fitting for this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I do have to ask, anything to add or subvert before we go, Moz?
Yeah, don't end on pulled pork anymore.
Well, give me something else then.
All right, I'm gonna give you a stuffed pumpkin head. Where's that
Nice.
shit?
Nice. Pumpkin head full of tree mutton stew.
There you go. We can combine ours and actually have something tasty.
See, when we put them together, that's the winner
actually
right
good.
there.
Yeah,
That's the winner.
good. That would be good.
It's all about teamwork here at MLT. It's good to have us back. Although we're still kind of on hiatus. Not sure where our upcoming schedule is going to be. But we'll try not to be too long with another episode. Either way, we'll see you soon out there in Weirdness Land. So to all our fellow paranerdalists out there, until the next time, have a good one. Monster Lore Tour Podcast. I'm a fruit that looks like a person.
Yep. I'm gonna keep looking at my paper here.
My brain is a peach.